Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, and this is the Evolution of Movies show. But as always, I am not alone. I am with the William Hurt and Ed Harris of the show, Andy Rossi, Aaron Massey. How you guys doing today?
Doing great, and I'll take either of those guys any day.
Doing real well.
Well, it depends. Is it Ed Harris with the stuff on his face?
Oh, that's something I definitely want to deep dive into.
Stuff.
The Ed Harris and William Hurt had some questionable facial stuff going on in this show, in this movie. But we're not going to give away the movie just yet. Come on. Everyone who's watched the show, you know how it works. But if you're new to the show, what we do is we watch movies and we talk about them, and we call it the Evolution of Movies because we always pick a movie that came out 1 year after the last movie. So we started with a movie in 1990, then we went to 91, 92. Now we're all the way in 2005. That means next week we're going to 2006, but we're not going to get ahead of ourselves. We're going to talk about it here and now. We're going to talk about 2005. Let me take you back to a time when movies were all about people leaving behind their old life to start a new one. Movies like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Batman Begins, and of course, The Pacifier starring Vin Diesel. But we're not talking about any of those. We're talking about a history of violence. A movie Roger Ebert gave 3.5 stars to, and IMDb describes as a mild-mannered man becomes a local hero through an act of violence which sets off repercussions that will shake his family to its very core. I probably saw this movie as soon as it came out to rent, and I hadn't seen it since. So I was eager to revisit it because I know it has a lot of favorable ratings from critics, and we see that with Roger Ebert, 3.5 stars.
Ebert.
I think that's the highest rating we've seen for a movie since we started keeping track of that. Aaron, I was really glad that you got to watch this because I love comedies, but you're an incredible filmmaker, and I wanted to get your thoughts on a movie that is viewed as an incredible film. Was this something that going into it, had you seen it before, and what were your thoughts going into it this time before actually breaking down the movie, just kind of getting ready to watch it?
Yeah, like you, I think I saw it when it first came out and haven't seen it since. So some time has gone by. And it's interesting because like there's those movies in your own like lexicon that you've seen. And every once in a while, even though they can be a really good film, you can forget a lot of the film. So it's like it's like a nice little present to reopen again. You kind of forgot some of what happened, and even the plot. Like, so even going into this, I was like, all right, I vaguely remember some things, but actually kind of completely forgot like the plot, storyline, through lines, all the actors that were in it throughout. So it was fun to get back into.
Yeah, I going into it, I like you said, I forgot basically all of it except for, yeah, he used to kill people, right? But then I realized that's basically what the title of the movie is, Guy Used to Kill People. Andy, this was your choice. Explain your pick.
I can't remember the last time I saw it. I actually picked this movie. I told my wife this yesterday when I first moved out here around this time this movie came out, and I saw it. Maybe I was going to the movie theater by myself at the time, and there was a guy that I knew that I said, hey, you should watch History of Violence. And he goes, yeah, I heard from a guy that's a real actor that said it wasn't good, so I'm not going to watch it. And I'm like, oh, that was very nice of you. So like I was always like, but I think it was good. And like this guy didn't want to listen to my opinion. So I'm glad to hear Roger Ebert enjoyed it. Most people enjoyed it. It was nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. So people liked it. So yeah, this time around, I kind of wanted to show that guy it was a good movie. And I thought it was. I thought it was. It seemed a little dated.
Yeah, there was definitely some dated stuff in there. It's unfortunate that a real actor said that they didn't like it, as opposed to all the people that worked on it and were actually in it. But Before we get into the rundown, of course, I always like to say thank you to everyone who's watching, who's listening, whether it be on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. It's all appreciated. If you could share the show, comment, like, subscribe, 5-star reviews, all that good stuff, always appreciated. But I think it's time. I think it's time we dive into the movie. You guys ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So inside what looks to be the Rosebud Hotel, two dudes are checking out. And by that, I mean they're killing everyone and stealing a jug of Earth's most precious resource, water. They're also shooting a kid. Meanwhile, Vigo has a family and everyone in the house shows up to tell the daughter there's no such thing as monsters. Vigo's son is a loser who can't play baseball, and a young Steven Dorff hates him for it. And Vigo works at a family diner just like Bob's Burgers. And after a long day of work, Vigo and his wife do a little role playing. Andy, walk us through this sex scene.
Oh, yeah. Well, cheerleader outfit. That was probably popular back in the day. I was confused at the cheerleader outfit because to me, it would mean she was dressing up like a cheerleader, like maybe she did back in high school, but they didn't meet in high school. So I was a little thrown off by that. Like, is she just wearing a cheerleader outfit because Vigo's into cheerleaders? Was that kind of the thing?
I was very thrown off by the time period because I don't know how old Vigo was supposed to be. And I think we'll talk about it a bit more as we kind of open up to what his past really is. But yeah, how long it had been since it was who he was and all this other stuff seemed very weird to me. But Aaron, I want to ask you, this is sort of where they set the stage for the movie and they kind of show us you've got these two bad hombres leaving a hotel, killing people, and the juxtaposition of Vigo now in a classic family life. We know these two worlds are going to collide. Tell us what you're thinking at the beginning of this.
Right out of the gates, I was pulled in by the single shot slide across the motel face, and then kind of like watching the characters just go about their items and their day here. So, I mean, I like stuff like that. I don't need all the fast editing cuts. I like to kind of sink into what's happening. And I think for me, that type of stuff draws the audience in a little bit more. So I appreciated kind of that oneer that they did out of the gates. But then they started to make some decisions that I definitely started to question. And like, I don't know, you're trying to establish fear or that these guys are your antagonists and not to be trusted, and obviously showing them what they'd done in the hotel office. I thought it was a little bit unnecessary with the kid. Like, to me, they've already done what they've done. It's a brutal killing.
Mm-hmm.
The kid didn't make any sense to me. Like, are you just trying to make him that much more worse? Trying to like evoke a certain emotion out of the audience. I thought it was a little bit forced and unnecessary. Like, you didn't need that to get me to like despise these dudes and kind of understand where the story was going. So for me, I was like, all right, this is cool. I kind of remember this. And then the whole girl coming out, who's acting. I don't want to judge too bad, but
I know. I'm like, why did she take so long? Why'd she take so long to come out? You hear gunshots and then you wait like a really long time.
Well,
and
she's
then
a kid. I don't think she's going to run out during the gunshots.
A little bit after. Come on. But yeah, I agree with Aaron on this. I thought the same thing. I thought that opening shot is great. It was funny how the dude just drove like, I don't know, 3 feet.
Yeah. Like, and you could tell there's one part where he stopped on that take. He stopped too early. And then he kind of like gave it another 3 feet. So I know there's someone right there just waving. I'm like, and then stop right there.
Wait.
Just so he could get the camera aligned with the door frame so you can see the guy coming out. But I'm like, can't, it's a oneer. You got to like do that whole thing over if he screws that up.
Yeah. I agree with you. I thought I love that whole scene. And then even like the guy comes out, you see him throw something in the garbage and like, I got it. I'm like, okay, this guy definitely like killed somebody in there. And the dialogue's even great. Like, oh, it took you so long. But yeah, I don't think we even needed to see the bodies in there. To me, it almost looked like there was a little too much bright red blood in there, like almost like it was too staged. And then, yeah, the little girl stuff, I don't think that was necessary. I think having it in your brain of what you think happened in there, I think would have been a cooler choice.
Yeah. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you guys, it's so funny. We're all on the same page here. I agree. One, I love that shot in the beginning. It felt like I'm not a filmmaker, so I look at it as a fan, but I could feel that this is going to be a tense movie as that was happening, because you could just feel the tension, because you can just tell the way this is being shot that these two guys are not good people. Again, maybe the name of the movie is hinting that they're not going to be good people, but you can just tell right away these guys aren't good people. I don't know what they're doing, but I also agree. I don't think you needed to go in, because I almost like that idea of like, wait, did he pay or did he kill them? Because you can't tell, but you can, So seeing them dead is kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess he killed them. But yeah, all the blood. The thing that really got me with the blood was the handprint from the bell on the counter felt a very like, okay, this feels like if I was making a haunted house, kind of.
Yeah, it did have that feel to it for sure. Yeah, it was just like, I'm like, man, that blood is really bright, and it was like a perfect circle. I don't know, just because later as we see the special, or not the special effects, but the makeup and the blood is amazing. So like to have like in the beginning, it was kind of like, yeah, a little haunted housey.
This movie definitely, it takes its time. I noticed in a lot of different spots, and this we'll talk about it because it is the first part of the movie. But scenes like, it has a lot of scenes like this where it doesn't feel rushed, but the movie's also not very long either. So it felt, I don't know if they were trying to fill time or if they just said, hey, we're going to let different scenes like this breathe and give it time, as opposed to trying to rattle out, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting. Are we at like kind of the bully stuff? I know you mentioned mini Steven Dorff.
So really quick, yeah, we'll say, because I did kind of want to ask you about that, Andy, because you like baseball. You both like baseball. Have you ever been that confident hitting a pop fly to center field?
For one, mini Steven Dorff, has a terrible batting stance. He's not even, Aaron will back me up on this one, he's not even wearing cleats. He's wearing like some like Asics that my dad would wear. I love my dad, but
yeah,
I like dad. He's got dad Asics playing baseball, and just to like be like, oh, I'm gonna hit a fly ball to this guy. It's just like, it's so stupid. It was just.
This was my favorite part of the movie to make fun of.
Yes.
And when the game was over, they said game over, yellow wins. Like they didn't even know a team name.
Yeah, there was definitely no athletes on the set of this film whatsoever, in terms of like the crew or anyone corresponding with like how to play baseball. My favorite part, obviously like him calling his shot or whatever, and he hits it. And he is so confident that he absolutely smoked this thing. It's going to be a home run. The best part is, my man, the son doesn't even move. So unless he was playing at about 410 in deep left center, it was probably a 215-foot pop fly. But this kid thought he was going to get knocked out of the park. And then my favorite part is him, like literally the kid getting berated for catching a fly ball in gym class. Like, you're dead, man. Like, I just caught a fly ball in gym class. Like, it really escalated quickly.
He wasn't the scariest bully either. I'm so glad the way this happened. We'll get to his fight later, but I'm like, this guy's so not intimidating. And the bully's friend was even worse. I'm like, is that guy the bully's friend, or is that another guy he's going to pick on?
We've had very bad bullies in the movies that we've watched. No, I think Spider-Man was the only one with a legit bully that looked like he could beat people up.
Yeah.
And it was, what's his name?
Joe Manganiello.
I can never say his last name. Joe Manganiello. Yeah. Because he was big. So you're like, okay, yeah, he could probably beat people up. But yeah, both these guys felt like, especially the main bully, felt like he would be the one getting teased in school, if anything.
Yeah, and I thought like the same thing like we've talked about with like Lindsay Lohan and Tobey Maguire, and She's All That, like the nerd, like this kid in this movie, he was kind of like a Jesse Eisenberg, I guess, type. Like
I kept calling him The Social Network throughout the whole movie.
Wasn't he? But when he first came in the movie, I got to credit my wife for this. I thought it was pretty funny. She's like, how old is that guy? Because like when he first came in, he almost looked like he was the same age as Viggo Mortensen, like the first scene. He looked like very old. And I was like, how funny would that be if they cast like me or some guy in his like late 30s, early 40s as, oh yeah, I'm the son.
I'm the son. He's like older than Vigo, but they keep.
Hey, Dad.
Well, speaking of, as I said, I don't even know what his kid's name is. So I guess I literally just call him the Social Network. So
you don't know what his name is? His
no.
name is Jack.
Is it really? But if you could,
I
see
didn't
me
realize that
watching
till
the movie,
way later in the movie.
if you could see me watching the movie, every time he's like, "Hey, Jack," I'd probably look around, but did someone say something? And then keep moving around.
Me?
Anyways, Jack is talking to some chick, and young Steven Dorff almost beats him up, but he stopped because he sees the killers from the beginning of the movie. The two killers walk into Bob's Burgers and demand coffee, so Vigo kills them with ease. The story breaks and Vigo becomes a big news story around the world. Business is good, and now that everyone knows where he is, Ed Harris shows up to tell him who he really is. Vigo says that these guys are mistaken, so Ed Harris leaves while laughing sinisterly, and Vigo's wife, Edie, calls the cops on them, but it doesn't really bother them all that much. Aaron, this is where new life Vigo and old life Vigo start to intersect and collide. My question for you here is, as the viewer, were you watching this thinking, well, of course, this is Joey. They're right. He is the bad guy. Or were you watching it thinking, are they mistaken? Were you questioning this? Because I felt like when I was watching it, like, yeah, of course. Like, I felt like of course, he's got a bad past. But as a viewer, were we supposed to be questioning it?
Yeah.
If that makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Tom Stahl, American hero.
Yeah.
That's what they labeled him.
Yeah. I love how does that make him an American hero? Like,
American hero.
I don't.
He's killing people in diners. So, yeah, I think the intention of the filmmaker and writer is to create confusion in the audience there. So even for, I had seen the film before, but I even caught myself for whatever reason in a certain moment. I don't know if it was the way that Vigo had played it really well to confuse the audience whether or not to believe him. And so that's a little dynamic that you can play as just like slide in a little question for the audience, some mystery for the audience, and allow everything to play around that. So I thought they did actually a pretty good job with that. I will say, and I don't want to, this was like, I enjoyed this movie. It was a good, solid movie. Like Andy said, it was a little bit dated in certain ways. I have a note here. Like, I don't know how you guys felt, but was it me or was the dialogue really kind of cheesy and on the nose? And even the acting was pretty stiff, even with like some of Vigo's scenes. And I think I have most respect for him. Anne Marie actually shot that. She did amazing. But I don't know how you guys felt about that, but there was definitely some moments in this film like, man, this feels like kind of kitschy. It feels like kind of like, are they doing this on purpose? Because it seemed really like stiff in terms of their acting.
Especially the stuff in the diner. I felt like just the small talk between the people at the diner. I didn't look up any of the supporting characters in the diner, but it seemed like it was all just like, hey, pretend you're at a diner and just say like the most stereotypical things a small town would say. Oh, I gotta keep the old lady on a leash or whatever. I mean, I don't think that's what they said, but it was all these like very like easy things to say, like very, I don't know. I agree with you. Yeah, it was very simple dialogue.
I wonder if it was pulled from the book, because this was based on a book, and I could see this dialogue playing better in a book if you're reading it as opposed to hearing people actually say it.
And that's possible, because I know, and Andy can relate to this too. You can give some of the finest actors a script, and if the dialogue doesn't work, if it's on the nose, if it doesn't blend, if you're not having a conversation or reacting, it's not natural. I don't care how good of an actor you are, you're still not going to make it seem like it is a natural conversation, or that it makes sense, or that it's like not taking you out of it. And so for me, that's how I usually judge things, is like it took me out of the film. I'm a little bit more critical because I am a filmmaker and an actor, And so that was just something that noticed. And I literally have the note, I think, right there at the diner scene. I had to write it down. I'm like, something's off here. So it could have been a scenario where they agreed on the script and those were the words that they had to say. But even then, you know, kind of make it your own, depending on how much freedom you have as an actor. But it's just something that caught my attention.
And I agree with Jack too. Jack, you were talking about how you kind of figured from the start. You're like, oh yeah, this guy's definitely had like a past life. But I think it's because of what Viggo Mortensen looks like. Dude's just got like that look that's kind of like a badass. I mean, I got a butt chin, but man, he outdoes me. But yeah, he's definitely got like that look. I was thinking about that. Like they just had that movie Nobody that came out with Bob Odenkirk. I haven't seen it yet, but I feel like that's a great, I mean, he's a guy that looks like if he was in this movie, I'd be like, yeah, no way did that guy have a past where he was killing people. But you look at Viggo and you're like, oh yeah, he was probably killing people. Mm-hmm.
I think too, because I think didn't Eastern Promises come out right around this time too, where he's
a little after.
Basically, he's a Russian, where he's a Russian mob guy in that movie specifically too.
Yeah, I thought actually going into this, because I couldn't remember all of History of Violence, I'm like, oh man, this has that naked fight scene, right?
Yeah.
and I was like, oh no, I got this confused with Eastern Promises.
Naked scene.
I blended it all in. Yeah, yeah.
Can we talk about that sex scene though? Like, I mean,
which one?
All right. Well, the first one.
Well, we got to talk about the first one. We haven't gotten to the second one yet.
So in the first one, and I don't want to get too graphic, but this is one of the first times that I could remember in a movie where it's not straight up sex. They do some other things involving a number, and that number is a number between 68 and 70. I just thought that was very interesting to be like, okay, so they're going to do that now?
Very active couple. They moved around a lot. They've been studying the tape. They knew how to do that.
Really shows their passion for each other.
I was just like, wow, okay.
They went for it. I mean, hats off to them, and they did it. I think they did it in the most tasteful way that you can. It's like you wonder what that conversation is before you're shooting that with Viggo and Maria.
Yeah,
because I mean, it's intense, and they got to like commit. If you're going to do something like that, you have to commit both ends, and you can't have anyone feeling like self-conscious. Obviously, there's parameters to work around and how they do that, but there was definitely like some leg clenching in that position too. So
he is really in there. You just saw there's some Viggo hair just getting wild.
Yeah. By the way, Viggo, we just saw Spy Game where they tried to put the worst hair on Brad Pitt in the world, and he was able to pull it off. Poor Viggo. He got dealt a bad hand with the haircut game this time around. I just gotta throw that out there. But I wanted to ask you real quick, Andy. This is one question I have for you. That's kind of basic. But the two guys that go to the diner that Viggo kills, were they looking for Viggo, or did they just stumble into the wrong town?
When I first saw this movie, I thought they were looking for Viggo, but I don't think they were. I think they were just bad dudes, right? That just Yeah, the guy demands. I'm going to start doing that when people don't give me coffee right away. He got his coffee right away when he demanded it. I thought that the kind of the older bad guy was great. Like he had a great like character look, and he was very frightening to me. The other guy who was gross, like he like groped the woman and stuff. I don't know. I wasn't a big fan of him. I'm just like, that guy doesn't look that scary. He had like a shirt that said like county football or something. I'm like, that guy. But yeah,
he's not going to play at the state level. Who cares?
Yeah, big deal.
Yeah, and he was like so tired at the beginning of the movie, like how he was playing it. I didn't understand. He was just like kind of like out of it, and I'm like, are you hungover? What's this trying? What point are you trying to get across here? I don't know. It just he seemed out of place to me, and again, that's simply a casting choice that, you know, maybe didn't work out for certain people, depending on your viewpoints. But I also thought he kind of took away. I don't know if he took away from I guess if you want to simply put it, like the evil energy of that duo. Like that other guy, he represented something that very particular that you got as a audience member. And I think the other guy kind of just softened that up a little bit for some reason. So I I didn't agree with the choice there, but it is what it is, right?
And that was the scene I think I remember the most. Maybe that was in the trailer a lot, but it's so badass. Like he just takes the coffee, what do you call that? Coffee pitcher?
The
Carafe,
carafe.
maybe.
Takes the carafe.
Carafe?
And,
I don't know.
But he just blasts the guy in the face. So that whole scene, man, that just had to be choreographed many times because it was done like very well. But that scene is so great, and you're kind of like the first time you see it, you're like, whoa, that's amazing. So that was pretty great. But yeah, to answer your question, Jack, what do you think? I don't think that they knew him. Do you think that they did?
I thought they did, but then they never once bring it up that they know him. They just come in and demand coffee.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, that's to your guys' point. I kind of wish they fleshed that out a little bit more, who these guys were in some degree. Because yeah, the main guy, the older one, definitely seemed like an interesting character. Like I would be, if they devoted like 10, 15 minutes to who this guy is, I would be interested in that. The other guy, I kind of got the vibe that he was like a new guy who was learning from the older guy for whatever reason. But at first I didn't like him, but I think that now looking back, he was really just kind of fodder to be killed. He wasn't meant to be a main character anyways. So that's probably why he was so kind of flat as a character, I think. Just kind of a gross dude that we were all supposed to cheer when he got shot because he killed the kid and he groped the woman. We were supposed to go, yeah, he got killed, as opposed to just being like, oh.
Yeah.
It's very disposable.
And the other guy, though, man, that was graphic. Like I was saying earlier, like the hotel or wherever that was where they were murdered with like the Halloween blood. This one, the makeup artist is like, fuck this. I'm going to make this awesome. Like, his like chin was like detached from the rest of his face. And he was still like gurgling.
Yeah.
It was cool.
After that, I actually thought like, wouldn't just put him out of his misery, because he just like leaves him there, like just shoot him, do something, as he's like, oh.
He's like Fire Marshal Bill.
This whole movie is actually a Fire Marshal Bill origin story. So anyways, the small town local law enforcement official seems to have FBI data because he finds out these dudes are part of a gang from the East Coast. Vigo denies knowing them, and they still drive by his place of work. So Vigo literally runs what seems like 4 miles to get home, where his son demands answers, and Vigo gives him some. At the mall, Ed Harris tries to explain who Vigo is to Edie, and Vigo's son beat the crap out of the 2 bullies at the same time. Back home, Ed Harris shows up, and the gang try to take Vigo in, but Vigo kills them all before admitting he's actually is Joey. His son hears him say this before shotgunning Ed Harris in the back, and Vigo gives him a hug because he's finally proud of something his son's done with his miserable life. Vigo admits to his wife now that he's Joey, and she's very unhappy about it. She cries. She eventually lies to the cop for Joey. And even though she's still mad at Vigo, they have a little fight. And next, Andy, they have a sex scene. And I hope you break this down for us.
I mean, outrageous. I was just thinking how uncomfortable it is on those wooden steps. That just seems like that's going to be so. And they show her later. She's got some bruises going on her back after all that. But yeah, that's, I don't know. You know, this couple was they were frisky, to say the least. But I mean, the first sex scene, they really go for it. And then this one, and I was thinking during all this, where was that little girl, their little daughter? Like, was she like in the house still, I would imagine, and the kid was probably there too, right? Or were they gone?
Yeah, this is where that's something that bothered me about this movie, is there was actually a lot of stuff like the daughter. You could have completely removed her from this movie and it would have changed absolutely nothing.
Who would have gave him dinner at the end, though?
That was the I mean, for the most part, I get you need to have the family to sell the viewer that he's a family man now, but she really contributed nothing to this movie. Like, there was nothing she added as a.
Yeah, you're right though.
Aaron, this is where in the movie, Vigo can no longer keep his 2 separate worlds apart. He admits to the viewer he is Joey, and now he's kind of dealing with these 2 worlds coming together.
Yeah, I'd like to backtrack a little bit to his stabbed foot.
Yeah.
And the choice that he walk like 4 miles to his diner to go work that day because he didn't have a car. So did he walk with a stabbed foot 4 miles to his diner?
I didn't get that.
Yeah, there was no
all.
Uber back then. Yeah.
So how did he get there? So he didn't take the family car. So now he's worried that they're going to attack his family. So now he's running with a stabbed
foot.
holy foot. I thought it was an interesting decision to, I don't know. I didn't understand it. That's all I have to say.
And by the way, even if it was like, let's say she dropped him off at the diner.
Maybe.
I mean, it feels like maybe not a good idea when you clearly know the mob is after you to just say, I'm going to drop you off by yourself and leave you here while we're on our own in the house.
Yeah. We're going to leave you with no transportation or weaponry whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though twice now there have been people who have come after you.
And maybe give her more of a heads up too, because when Ed Harris, he calls him Joey many times in that diner when he first comes in, and Ed Harris looks like a badass, and the wife's like, get out of here, and hears him call him Joey a lot. Like, it's just funny to me how his response to Ed Harris is just like, no, I'm Tom. It's not like he's got like a fake mustache now or like doesn't look any different.
With the glasses and a fake mustache.
Like I think in that scenario I'd be like, wait, what's that? And then I just like make a run for it. I'm like, he already made you out. Like he's gonna find your family. Like it's like Ed Harris is at the mall already checking out. And his line to the wife is so great. He says something like, if he's not Joey, he said, how come he's so good at killing people? I just think that's like a great line for him to say to the wife, for the wife to be like, oh shit, yeah, why he was really good at killing people. But I just thought it was, he gives his wife no heads up. Like, hey, by the way, maybe hide in the house, lock it up, get the gun ready. But no,
he literally left the diner that day after Ed Harris confronted him saying, I think that worked.
We're good.
We're good.
He should be on his way now.
Last time I saw him, I was wearing a pair of glasses, so we should be good.
Like, could you imagine, like, if Aaron, if you like came by, like, if you like walked into the same diner I'm at, like, hey, Jack, and I was like, I'm not Jack.
Yeah.
And then just be like, I fooled Aaron. He'll never figure that one out.
I mean, at the least, maybe just move your diner across the street, and you should be fine.
Totally just.
Yeah, I agree with Andy. It's like, I mean, at this point, you got got. Yeah. It's time to prep the family. Unless you are the aggressor and go ahead and take action first, and you go do the damage to these dudes, bury them in the woods before your family even finds out anything more. But it doesn't seem like American hero Tom Stahl is interested in being that or turning back into Joey. So he leaves his family out hanging.
And I'm thinking too, kind of similar to like the audience being like, was he a killer? Has he been Tom Stahl this whole time? Well, when his son like beats ass, like out of nowhere, I'm kind of like, I'm pretty sure Vigo is a badass too. Like this, where'd the son get those skills? I mean, he beat the shit out of those two guys pretty easily.
I got it from watching you, Dad.
I got it from watching you. Yeah, because he doesn't just like defend himself. He beats the crap out of those guys. He sends them to the hospital. And to the point of him thinking he got away with this too, Ed Harris at the mall explains that Tom Stahl, when he was Joey, tried to take his eye out with barbed wire. It's not like this is just a guy who saw a photo of him and is looking for him. Like, how does Vigo not go, hey, there's the guy whose eye I tried to remove with barbed wire. He's probably pretty frustrated about that. Yeah. Probably isn't going to just give up right away.
Oh, no, I'm Tom. No, you're Joey.
Could you imagine that, like, in a court scene? Like, you're the killer. Oh, no, that's not my name. I'm someone else. Nope.
I killed Joey a while ago.
I killed him. He's gone. Speaking of the name Tom Stahl, though, Andy, I wanted to say that I thought this was funny. When Edie finds out, she's a wreck. She's very unhappy. She doesn't like that Vigo lied to her. She doesn't like that Vigo's killed people, but she hates the name Tom Stall. Like, she was so upset about that. Was I the only one that thought that was a little like, that was the thing that she was upset about, was
How
the name
dare you
Tom
not
Stall?
be creative?
You could have
now
called
her
yourself
name's
Max
alive.
Powers. Come on.
That's true. You had so many different names you could have chosen.
Yeah, I think the witness protection, don't they choose it for you? I don't know if you can you create your own identity? Like, have some cool name, like, you know, X-Man Jones or something? Like, no, you're gonna be Frank Smith.
Yeah. Hi, my name's X-Man Jones.
X-Man Jones.
I'm just a simple man named X-Man Jones that runs a diner in the
You're on the witness protection program,
Joey,
aren't you?
that's going to stand out a little bit. We need to vanilla that up.
Yeah, that was his first choice. Have any ideas for your names? I was thinking X-Man Jones. We're going to go Tom.
Let me run
Stall.
this by you real quick.
Appreciate your input. Here's your passport.
I want to ask Aaron about this before moving on to the next part. Is this kid gives his dad a lot of lip, by the way. Just seems to be a whiny little crybaby who can't play baseball. Were you like that as a kid? I don't know. Social Network.
It's Jack.
I mean, this kid, no wonder Steven Dorff wants to beat him up. All he does is cry and complain and whine. Like, his dad is, people are trying to murder his dad, and he's like, "What are you going to do, Dad? Are you some mobster now? Ugh, go!" And like storming away. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. I think it just kind of played into the way that this again was written, where it's kind of like it has the cliched kind of outline and moments and build where you have, you know, husband, wife, son, daughter, you know, kind of the bully and the weakling, just kind of played into all that. And I think that character wasn't kind of like developed out that much in terms of his ability to communicate with his father. I don't know. Again, it's just like some of the choices, they kept the movie going. I think for me too, that was the one thing. It was like, this would be interesting as like an actual like television series to me, where you could flesh these characters out more. It's still a solid film, but I don't know. I think this today in 2021, if you came to somebody with a pitch, you pitch this as either a mini series or, you know, a show on HBO that runs for 3 or 4 seasons. So it's just, I think they had a time crunch to slam all this stuff in there. And so with films, it's just like you have to do that in certain ways, and you're gonna risk, you know, alienating storylines and character development because of your 2-hour window or less. And so I think that's what we saw a lot of in this film, so that they could keep things moving. And that's just kind of the result of it.
I think the casting may have heard it too, because as we mentioned, this kid looked 35. So him being like, "Come on, Dad," is
Jack,
like,
you really hated this guy.
He can't play baseball. He's a loser.
He caught that ball.
He wants a gold medal for catching the easiest ball in baseball. And in any case,
it was funny though. I know we're way past this, but the baseball stuff just made me so like frustrated and laughing. Like, you could have done just about any other sport, and it would have made sense to have like the bully, you know, like put him on the wrestling team, or like football. You know, he's like a guy that just like tackles the nerd really hard or something. But it's like literally like, I'm gonna hit a baseball really as far as I can. Oh, he caught it. No, I'm gonna fight him. Like, it makes no sense.
Well, did you Andy, when you were a bully, did you have the verbal back and forths that this bully had? Because it felt like he had to, almost like a pro wrestling match. You got to have the promo before the fight. Like, he'd always have to talk, and they have to go back and forth before their fights.
It did seem like he had it. Like, I bet he like rehearsed, because he did give the kid some time before he would bully him. Like, he could have just bullied him right on the field. Instead, he waited, and he probably like has like a little notebook he took out. He's like, all right, let me get some ideas. I've been writing some new material. Let me get it ready. And then like, he's like, all right, Here we go. Practice it a couple times. Now I'm in the locker room. All right, here we go. It's go time. And even the time with he was gonna go fight him on the street in his truck, and the kid's like, all right, why don't you go fight him? He goes, I will. And then he gets stopped by that truck, but he actually doesn't, go fight him at that time. And I think it's because he needed to rehearse a bit more. He needed to get his promo ready.
He was like, let me just workshop this with you real quick. I got a few put downs. I got a Yo Mama in here. Does that still play in 2005? I don't know. In any case, Joey drives to Philly, where William Hurt, playing Richie here, lives in the mansion from Resident Evil 1 and confidently is rocking a chin strap beard. He's mad at Vigo for busting up a made man before disappearing and causing Richie to become an outcast of the mob world. Through the miracle of terrible aim, Vigo kills everyone and shoots a hole through Richie's head. The next morning, he cleans himself off in a dirty pond instead of the shower in the huge mansion he's at. He drives home where he catches his family having dinner. The kids seem to forgive him, but the couple share a knowing, tear-filled glance at each other. So we get to the end of the movie. Andy, I want to ask you, because I think this is kind of one of the biggest parts here, the very, very end. What was the couple thinking when they were looking at each other?
I have no idea. That ending was this it was just music and crying and no one's saying anything. I don't know. I was very disappointed with that end scene. I'm like, why is nobody saying anything? This dude was just gone for how long was he gone? He was gone quite some time doing some murdering. And no one questions him when he gets home. Like, hey, did you kill anybody? Hey, where were you? Instead, they're eating pot roast, and no one's saying anything.
Yeah. Where's all right? So maybe I missed it too. Where were they located at? Because I know he had to go back to Philly. So it was Indiana.
I think so.
I missed that. Yeah. Okay. So that's a travel day. That's
it's a long drive.
That's a haul. That's a haul.
Yeah. He said it was 16 hours. He said at one point.
That's crazy. 16 hours to get from Indiana to Philly.
And he didn't even stretch before he got into the mansion. He just went right in.
So here's another little gripe. So he gets out of the Escalade at the mansion, and they go, "We're gonna have to frisk you." But they had picked him up before that, right? And wouldn't you just frisk him before he got in your car?
That's true.
Right. He wait till then.
Wait until he's already there. He could have capped them in the car.
Right.
That's great.
Knife the throat out. I mean, I don't know. There's some things come on, guys, we gotta tighten this up a little bit.
Yeah, the operation definitely. I mean, he smoked those guys pretty quickly too. His associates.
Richie was blaming Joey for not being the top mob boss. I think Richie just had a bad operation.
Yeah. And you know what? When Richie first sees Joey for the first time, did anybody else? I don't have a brother, but I know my brother-in-law, I wouldn't go up to any of them and put my forehead against their forehead, to greet them. I really thought they were gonna kiss, and then they did. He kissed Vigo on the cheek, but it was I love both of you guys, but we'll give each other a man hug or a handshake. I usually don't put my forehead against Jack's forehead when I see him.
Oh, we are now.
Well, now we will. I just thought that was super weird.
Yeah. Again, I think it's probably a choice of maybe even from Hurt that I have limited time to show the relationship here in one scene. Is there anything physical that we can do? And it's probably, maybe they did that since they were 5 years old, oddly, but again, I get it. But yeah, it's all right, interesting choice, but you're trying to do something to create a relationship with them. Yeah.
With that being said, he was so good.
Yeah. I never got it sounds like I'm making a joke, but the chin beard thing made him seem very unintimidating to me. He never seemed that dangerous to me. I felt like Ed Harris came across way more dangerous than William Hurt did. I like William Hurt, but for me, it just I didn't get that feeling this guy. And I don't like to throw this word around because I don't want to hurt feelings, but it felt like everyone working for him was a nincompoop.
Totally. Yeah, I don't know where he hired these guys.
Did you say I don't like throwing this word around?
Yes. Yeah.
Nincompoop.
It's a bit. It's a.
Whoa,
I don't
whoa.
want to hurt feelings. You know.
Well,
Don't clip this out.
Yeah,
Take it out of context.
I think old Bill Hurt, I think he acted more as the muscle, not the muscle, the brains, the businessman of the organization, which obviously was apparent when he missed about 45 shots from 10 feet away.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, dude, you are right across the office from him. Like, just to not even clip him. I will say during that fight scene at the end, Vigo's neck stomp, I had to rewind that several times, not because I'm sadistic, but because of like the execution of that looks so cool. You remember, like, I think it was the last guy. He got him. He was on the ground, and then he just turns and just boot to the neck. Fantastic.
And then he snapped the guy's neck, I think, right after that.
Yeah. So
very quickly.
Yeah, very physical film. Very physical in all aspects, all manners.
And I agree with you, Jack. Like, I was watching him, William Hurt, so good in this. Like, he got nominated for an Oscar, and he was in the movie for like 10 minutes. But like, you kind of just like you can't keep your eyes off of him. Like, he's great. But yeah, I wasn't intimidated by him. Like, while I'm watching him, like, this guy's gonna get killed. Like, he's not like a tough guy, but like Aaron said, he's like the brains of the operation. But yeah, he just didn't have that. He kind of reminded me of like a long lost Jeff Bridges' brother. Like, he just kind of had a little dude to him. But Ed Harris, I haven't really talked about him yet, but I thought he was so good, you know, his crazy eye and just very intimidating. And then he died a lot earlier than I remembered. I didn't remember him going out so quickly.
Yeah. When that loser kid shot him in the back like a coward.
Yeah.
Ed Harris is a national treasure. I mean, anything that guy touches is gold. So good. Can I make a comment about the end of the chaos there at the murder scene?
Yeah.
As Vigo decides to throw the murder weapon and his clothes in the pond at the location of the murder scene.
Yeah, that didn't seem like a veteran thing to do.
Probably just gonna rake that pond out tomorrow and find all your shit.
Yeah, that seems like the first place you would look. If I was a cop, I'd say, well, let's look in the pond.
Yeah,
but that was Joey's stuff. Tom Stahl is free.
Yeah. No, to answer your point, Jack, it's like if I'm an investigator and I show up to a mansion and there's a murder, I'm going to immediately ask, is there a pond here?
Right. That's like asking, is there a shallow grave anywhere around? I want to see.
Let's get in there.
But that's exactly like I said too. Like, why was he going out to the pond if he needed to clean up? You're in a mansion. There's showers. There's probably plenty of places to clean up, not in some dirty pond, anyways. But I would say the one thing from the physicality standpoint, we joked around about it a bit already, was the one thing that took me out of this movie was how often he got missed from shots. Like even at the diner, the dude missed him a lot. I was like, whatever, he's an idiot. That makes sense to me. But then in the mansion, no one could hit him either. That bothered me. This was the big thing that I didn't get is how old was he supposed to be in this movie? Because I was guessing he had to have had a new life. He had to have been Tom Stahl at least 20 years.
Yeah.
So if he was 40, that means he quit being a crazy person when he was 20. Like, is he still good at this? He hasn't. I don't know what I've done since I was 20. Like, I don't know if there's anything I haven't done since I was 20 that I'm still good at now.
That's a great point. Yeah. I mean, was he sneaking off and like going to the gun range and going to some Muay Thai classes?
Sometimes you have that history of violence inside you, Jack.
Yeah,
but he might just be a natural. I mean, Jack's favorite character in this, that kid, he was lighting up two bullies, and I don't think he had any training.
The thing that got me though is if he's doing all this, like he needs to at least be like, "Oh, my knees are sore" or something. Stretch it out a little bit. Come on, you're that age. You haven't done this in that long. You're gonna be a little tight the next morning at least.
Yeah, if Bruce Willis played this, he'd definitely have some like, getting old is tough or something like that.
Yeah, getting too old for this shit.
And we have to talk about. We see Viggo Mortensen's butt, and
or was that his chin?
But did you guys catch the wife like in a quick little cameo there coming into the room? Did you guys catch that? For some reason the wife was completely naked. Like, we saw everything but it was like very brief, and I'm not sure why that happened.
Yeah, I remember that happened, and I remember feeling like I feel like that was like a negotiated thing. Something happened where they were like, "Hey, you got to do this or whatever." I don't know. It felt very.
Didn't it seem weird?
Yeah, it felt very like. It felt like a moment where they said, "Hey, you have to do a scene," and she was like, "Well, what's the quickest way we can do it and get it over with or something?" Because it was very like peekaboo, and then like, oh, okay.
You're talking about where she covered herself up when she saw him. Yeah. So I think it's just they're just trying to show like, this relationship has been tampered with now. I think that's it was
just
point.
After they were just railing each other.
Yeah, was it just after that? Okay. Yeah. My timeline's got all screwed up.
Yeah,
and I've already dusted this one off my brain cells.
Yeah, I have one more line I wanted to mention too. William Hurt says to Viggo, he says, he said, "I remember the first day you came home from the hospital, I tried to strangle you in your crib, but hey, that's what all kids do." I'm like, don't think so.
Did he?
Yeah.
I remember thinking like you couldn't even kill an infant. That's how. No wonder you weren't able to kill Joey now with the gun. Like, come on, it's not like he was fighting back day one. Come on. So I think just to put a bow on it, my last thoughts are: I think that when they were looking at each other at the end, it was crime because they now had to try to find a way to get back to regular life, but the wife doesn't know if they will be able to, especially knowing that he just came back from murdering a bunch of people. But I don't know. Do you guys have any final thoughts on this? I don't know if it aged very well. I felt like it was kind of slow compared to a lot of today's movies. I love the premise though. It was very interesting, but I did just feel, I think what took it out for me was some of the stuff we talked about with the dialogue and I never questioned whether or not he was actually a killer. From the very beginning, I was like, yeah, of course he's a killer. I mean, look at him. But any final thoughts from you guys? Aaron, we'll have you go first.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I think for its time, like when that film came out, is a good, solid movie. Like, that's what you would go to the theaters to see on a Friday night and get a good like kick out of it. So, but just having some time away from that time period and maybe just style of filmmaking, again, I don't want to speak poorly because it's very difficult to make films, but I felt like there was a lot of loose ends and issues that they needed to type in the script. From a dialogue standpoint, from a storyline standpoint, that they could have just fleshed out a little bit more if they spent just a little bit more time on it. But overall, like, Viggo is great. He's always interesting to watch. And Maria Bello I think was great too. And they went for it in some of these. So they got, that was like kind of the end of the era of like doing extreme sex scenes. And nowadays, like, I can't even imagine having that conversation in pre-production. It'd be a whole different conversation. But, yeah, I mean, overall, like, solid, interesting to revisit. And that's all I can pretty much say at this point.
And Andy, your pick, how'd you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys are saying. And I think to Aaron's point, I do think this would have been, even now, if they did a History of Violence, the series or miniseries, I think it would be a lot better off. Because even like that beginning tracking shot that we all talked about that we really liked, I wanted to see like that movie. It kind of felt more like gritty and even a little bit more artsy. Like I felt like we never really had that after that. And just like the characters weren't as developed as I would have liked. But yeah, I think like the lead actors were, like Aaron said, just now Viggo and Maria Bello and William Hurt, Ed Harris. I mean, just like all, rock stars. And my one bit of trivia I read was that this was the last movie released on VHS. So that this shows
really?
it was. Yeah, so this was
in
fairly old.
the US. Yeah, and I mean, to your point too, that's just one thing I thought of too. It's like you're talking about that first shot and like entering and like, all right, this is going to be kind of like interesting, artistic. It's going to be shot a little bit differently, and right, it kind of like it just went away from that completely. Not to say that like some of the editing around the fight scenes is great, but sometimes people also don't understand too that depending on the studio that you're under, filmmaker may not get complete creative control of this, and the studio may come in and chop a bunch of shit out that would have actually like made it better, but there's sometimes non-creatives who are making decisions saying like, well, we need to put these sex scenes in and we need to do this and that and take out these cool shots because no one's interested in that. Just cut to the next thing. So you don't like necessarily know the entire backstory of the finished product, because there's a lot of great filmmakers out there that make something, they have their creative control just absolutely stripped from them. So I don't want to claim that this was a poorly made film or anything. It's not. It's just sometimes you just don't know the ends of these deals and what goes on inside the big money rooms,
And that's kind of what I was thinking when we talked about when the wife walked in, is it felt like someone up high was like, hey, we need a nude scene. And it got forced in there somehow. Like, how can we just do this, check that box and then move on? Because that's how it felt. It felt like it was like, it's here, it's done. Okay, next thing. I was thinking as you guys are talking about this, it felt kind of like IKEA furniture when I built it. Well, all the parts are there. All the parts are great. I don't know if I assembled it properly, but all the stuff is kind of there. It felt like there was a lot of great scenes, and then the connectors weren't necessarily there the way I would have liked. Like I said, there's so much of the stuff you could have taken out of the movie and it still worked. Like
take out the daughter.
Basically the family for the most part. I mean, even the son stuff wasn't necessary. Like if we took out the bully stuff, all the bully stuff completely, it's still the same movie. The movie doesn't change at all. But I get that you need to have the kid kind of having his day-to-day life to show that Vigo has a family now, and he's like a family man. But
and one thing I thought of too, like, what's the lesson in this? Like, basically, like, it's just like, if you did have a past life, make sure you kill everyone that knew about it.
That's the lesson. Cover your tracks, guys. Otherwise, your wife will find out. The wife always finds out. Well, speaking of finding out, I can't wait to find out, Andy, how you are able to connect Kevin Bacon in 6 Degrees for this one.
This is an easy one. And I was trying to make it more difficult for myself, and I know our viewers really want it to be difficult, but this one was just, I had to do it. Just Ed Harris was in Apollo 13 with Kevin Bacon.
Classic.
Yeah. Now that I'm remembering that Kevin Bacon was in Apollo 13, there's 3 movies he's in that just connects him to everything.
Yeah.
But Sleepers. So that was an easy one. But next week we continue on. We're done with 2005. We move to 2006. Aaron, you picked that movie. What will we be watching for 2006?
The number 300. Coming to town.
300. We're not going to wait till episode 300 to do 300. We're just going to do 300 now. That one is going to be a fun one. I'm excited for it. I picked in 2007, and in 2007, we're going to live free or die hard. So we got a couple of action movies back to back. But Andy, let us know, what's 2008 going to look like?
I had to do it. I got a particular set of skills in 2008. We're going to go Taken, Liam Neeson.
Ooh, that's a good one. That one actually, because I feel like that one spinned off a whole new genre of things.
It spinned off Liam Neeson in a whole new direction.
It really did. So a couple of action movies in a row here. That'll be fun. A lot of testosterone to get us out of the Mean Girls. We had a bunch of kind of girly teen movies. Now we're trying to get back out of that. It's a masculine society. Back to our roots, the Lionheart roots of the show. That does it for us. So everyone who's watching and listening, make sure to watch 300, and then you can be part of the conversation as well. Let us know what you thought about A History of Violence in the comments. Again, thank you everyone for watching. Aaron, where can the world find you online and all the stuff you're working on?
I'm at Massive3 on Instagram and Aaron_Massey on Twitter. And you can search me, Aaron, AARON, Massey, MASSEY, on YouTube for some fun little videos.
Awesome. And Andy Rossi, how about yourself?
You can find me on the social medias at just Andy Rossi.
And you can find me at Real Jack Farmer across all social media. That's us. This has been the evolution of movies. Make sure to check out 300 and join us next week when we talk all about 2006.